Hi, this is Phil at Fleet Authority. I don't have a net here, but I do have James running the camera today. Hey, James. We're working on a '04 6-liter Ford diesel, and this company bought it from a used car lot, actually. So don't have a history on this truck, but it's been having some running trouble. And we narrowed it down to intermittent voltage spikes in the IPR circuit. So James took it apart. We came down to the wiring and had some bad wiring for the regulator. So we're kind of spot on. You can do a close-up of that wiring there. There's the connector. It came out broken, and there's no pieces. So somebody tried to feed it up in there broken. These are really hard to get to in the early models. It's tucked under the back of the motor behind the turbo intake exhaust pipe. So further digging and opening the harness, it's got a new IPR sensor in it. But we opened up the wiring for the IPR sensor. You can see where it's been pinched. And see here where it's been pinched and gone bare. So I don't know if it's losing contact in there or possibly shorting. I'm trying to pull it apart here, see. So on the regulator side, we wired in a new connector. And we did a crimp solder and heat shrink connection. We're going to do the same for the sensor. This connector looks a little worse for the wear. The wiring's worse than the connector itself. But this wiring is very, very shoddy. So we're gonna cut this, wire in a new connector, and we'll come back to you with the results on this one. Thanks. Back with this 6-liter IPR wiring issue. I'm gonna wire a new connector for the sensor. We cut back this bad wiring, and I'm just going to run the little video on one connector repair, and then we're going to move on. Cleaned up the wiring. The wiring's pretty shoddy here, so cut it back the length of the new connector. Doesn't give me a lot of wiggle room, but we're going to roll with it. So try to stay in one place for you, James.
That's all right.
I'm going to slide a heat shrink up on here. I don't have a blue one this size, so I'll use green just for you know, giggles. Put a little bit of flux on the wire. I like this connections to be done very intently. You lose your light?
Yeah.
I'll swap it. So I put a little flux on the wire, which is an acid that helps the solder connect. And then I'm going to crimp a small connector on here. So I'm going to crimp it, solder it, and heat shrink it. And then we're going to insulate, wrap it once we're finished. It'll be kind of a redundant repair, but shouldn't have to second guess the repair when we're finished. That'll work. I'm going to do the same thing here. Put the wire in the connector. It's a little hard to do for a camera. We'll try. Really thoroughly crimped on there, I think. This is not a normal crimp I do for, say, lighting wire or something. Making it extremely crimped. so it'll hold the solder and then make it a nice tight connection. I'm just gonna get it hot. To melt the flux. There she goes. If I get it too hot. Once the solder starts flowing inside the connector, no, we got it. Want the whole roll of solder. See the solder melt. Tap out the extra. Good. Have to retrieve that in a minute. Let it cool down a little bit. Well, the solder didn't tap out. That's all right. Just squish it. I don't want it to cut the heat shrink. So now it's cool enough, I can push the heat shrink over it. Heat that up. It's kind of fun stuff. Heat the other side. That's it. It's a crimped and soldered and heat shrunk repair. We'll do the other ones the same, and then wrap the whole thing and heat shield it, and then we'll have a new connection for this IPR sensor. If you like these videos, please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and we'll send you the link to the next one. Thanks. Okay, Phil, back with this 6.0. We've fixed the harness, put new ends on it. There's the sensor end. There's the regulator end. Wrapped it with some metallic duct tape, basically, to give it some heat shield. Underneath this is basic plastic shielding, give it some air space. So that ought to be good. The problem with these is they go way back underneath that exhaust pipe. The exhaust pipe off the turbo and down underneath. You might be able to just see the white connector off the regulator, and behind it is the black connector for the sensor. That's where they go. So they're under these shields, but it's still quite a lot of heat. So over time it creates problems with the wiring. But we're gonna put this back together and then see if our voltages and resistances are correct and see if this thing runs all right. So we'll get back to you when we get to that point.